Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into the dusty mirrors and candlelit halls of the Middle Ages to discover what people actually thought was beautiful. And let me warn you, it's nothing like what you'd see on a runway today. Think foreheads so high, they were shaved bald eyebrows plucked into oblivion and pale waxy skin that looked like it hadn't seen the sun in years. You probably won't survive this beauty routine without losing half your hair and possibly your dignity. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're tuning in. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin in a medieval chamber lit only by a single beeswax candle. Its flame flickers softly against stone walls, illuminating a small mirror of polished metal. In it, you see a woman noble, perhaps combing her hair with a carved bone comb. She's not trying to make it voluminous. She's not curling it, styling it, or even washing it. No, she's preparing to pluck it out. Specifically, her hairline. Because in this era, a high domed forehead was the pinnacle of grace. This isn't a fad or a quirky trend. It's a full-blown beauty standard that transcends regions and decades. A smooth, rounded forehead, almost unnaturally large, was considered regal, intellectual, even spiritual. To achieve it, women used tweezers to pull out hair strand by strand. Some even applied vinegar or quicklime to stunt growth. The more space between your eyebrows and your hairline, the more refined you looked. And speaking of eyebrows, thin was in. Not just arched or shaped, but sometimes erased entirely. Some women removed their brows and painted faint shadows in their place, especially among the upper classes. It gave the face an open, blank expression that was considered both holy and elegant. In portraits of the time, noblewomen often have a serene, nearly vacant gaze, calm, expressionless, eternal. Then there was the skin. Pale skin wasn't just admired, it was worshipped. It told the world that you didn't work outdoors, that you had wealth, that you were protected. The whiter your complexion, the more aristocratic you appeared. And if you were naturally dark or ruddy-skinned, well, tough luck. People went to extremes to bleach or conceal their tone. They dusted their faces with lead-based powders. They smeared on concoctions of egg whites and ground chalk. Some even used mixtures containing mercury or vinegar to achieve a ghastly pallor. The side effects: hair loss, tooth decay, early death. But hey, at least you looked expensive. A good complexion was more than just pale, though. Smoothness mattered. Blemishes were not just unsightly, they were sinful. Pimples were considered signs of moral impurity. Warts could be interpreted as marks of the devil. Spots, moles, rashes, these weren't just medical conditions. They were social indictments. People used everything from crushed pearls to crushed insects in attempts to soften, lighten, or disguise them. But of course, not all beauty was in the face. Let's move down the body. In medieval Europe, the ideal woman was slender, but not too thin. She needed a soft curve to her figure, a gentle roundness that hinted at fertility and health. Breasts were modest, barely emphasized. Fullness in the hips and belly was more desirable, especially after childbirth. A visible waistline wasn't as important as it would later become in the Renaissance. Instead, the body was often hidden under layers of cloth, sometimes wool, sometimes linen, sometimes velvet, if you were noble. But underneath, there was always the expectation of softness. Even posture mattered. The ideal woman walked slowly, gracefully, with eyes cast downward. Her steps were small, her voice gentle. Laughing too loud. unladylike. Swinging your arms as you walked clumsy. Everything was supposed to suggest restraint, delicacy, modesty. Beauty was as much about behavior as appearance. And yes, there were regional differences. In England, high foreheads and pale skin ruled. In France, fashion dictated certain sleeve shapes and head coverings that framed the face just so. In Italy, golden hair became an obsession. Blonde locks were thought to be angelic divine. Women who weren't naturally fair-haired would sit in the sun for hours with mixtures of lemon juice and saffron painted into their tresses, wearing wide-brimmed hats with the crowns cut out just to expose their hair while shielding their faces. In every court, every village, beauty meant something slightly different, but always with the same core themes: pale, smooth, hairless, restrained, and always, always unnatural. True beauty in the medieval mind wasn't about nature, it was about discipline, about showing the world that you had the time, wealth, and patience to transform yourself. And perhaps most fascinating of all these standards weren't just for the living. In illuminated manuscripts and religious art, the Virgin Mary was almost always depicted with the perfect medieval features: high brow, pale skin, delicate mouth, serene eyes. Saints, too, were drawn to look like noble women, idealized, untouched, and entirely still. This tells you everything you need to know about how beauty and holiness were intertwined. To look beautiful wasn't just about attraction. It was about appearing pure, unearthly, untouchable. So as you lie in bed tonight, picture yourself in one of those dim chambers, plucking your forehead bare, smearing your face with crushed chalk and vinegar, whispering a prayer that your complexion doesn't betray your soul. You're not just preparing for bed, you're preparing for judgment. Because in the medieval world, beauty wasn't about self-expression, it was about salvation. The candlelight flickers against the stone walls as you lean closer to the polished metal mirror. It distorts your features just enough to unsettle you. Your nose seems longer, your cheeks too round, your forehead not nearly high enough. But that's the point. You're not looking for honesty in your reflection. You're looking for correction. You lift the tweezers again. One hair at a time, you pluck your way upward. The skin at your hairline begins to sting red and tender, but you keep going. Because beauty in the medieval world is a ritual of refinement, not comfort. It's about effort, visible effort. And no effort is more valued than that which masks the natural state. Every day you perform this quiet violence on yourself, not because you enjoy it, but because the world expects it. And because women who don't pluck bleach or pale their skin are seen as unruly, common, earthy in the wrong ways. You're not trying to look lively, you're trying to look still. Stillness is grace. Grace is beauty, and beauty is virtue. This idea that appearance reflects inner worth is everywhere around you. At church, the priest preaches about the Virgin's purity, and though he's speaking of the soul, everyone pictures the same face, smooth, pale, perfect. Every statue of Mary, every painted triptych shows the same high forehead, down-turned eyes, gently blushed cheeks, and that faint beatific smile. She is the standard, the ultimate beauty. To look like her is to be closer to God, or at least to seem that way. So it's no wonder that women go to extremes. Some bind their breasts to appear more modest, more childlike, more untouched. Others ingest herbs to suppress appetite to keep the figure slender. Hair is oiled, braided, coiled beneath headdresses and veils not for ease but for symbolism. Loose hair, unless you're a virgin bride, is dangerous, sensual, even scandalous. You don't show your beauty in public. You suggest it. That's the rule. But the pressure to conform isn't limited to noble women. Even in the village among the peasant girls who can't afford chalk powder or saffron rinse, there are standards. A clear complexion, for example, still matters. So does cleanliness, at least to a degree. A well-kept woman, even if she's working in the fields, will find ways to rinse her face in the stream, to comb the burrs from her hair, to tighten her apron, just enough to flatter her waist. Sometimes older women guide the younger ones. They pass down little tricks how to use egg whites to smooth the skin or rose water for the cheeks, how to rub nettle juice on the scalp to encourage thick hair. These aren't luxuries. They're social survival tools. Because in a world where your marriage prospects, your future security, your entire identity might depend on your looks, beauty is not a choice. It's currency. And the currency is tightly controlled by the church, the nobility, and the whims of regional taste. Let's take a detour to Italy, particularly Florence in the later medieval period. Here the beauty ideal begins to sharpen. It's not enough to be pale. You must also be golden. Golden hair, golden skin, but only faintly sun-kissed golden eyes if possible. Women walk the line between being angelic and erotic, and often the distinction is unclear. You might be admired in poetry today and condemned as a temptress tomorrow. The poet Petrarch famously obsessed over his muse Laura writing sonnets about her long blonde hair, her ivory neck, her modest gaze. Whether she existed or not, she became the blueprint for an entire generation of women's self-perception. Gentle, distant, pure, but always with that dangerous edge of allure. And in the courts of France, elegance becomes everything. Dresses are tailored to elongate the silhouette. Sleeves droop like vines. Waists are hidden. Faces are veiled beneath sheer fabric. Your allure lies not in what you reveal, but in what you conceal. A flutter of a veil, a flick of a sleeve, the tiniest glimpse of a wrist. These are performances. And you, the medieval woman, are always on stage. Back in England, things are more subdued. The Anglo-Norman influence values demureness. A woman's beauty is quiet. Her skin is milky, her hair braided tightly, her gaze lowered. Women are praised for their chastity, first, their elegance, second, and their physical appeal, a very distant third. Even makeup is controversial. Too much, and you're vain or worse, sinful. Rouge is fine in moderation, but too much color is associated with prostitutes and foreigners. And yet everyone still does it. Just a little. Because beauty is never truly about the rules. It's about navigating them. You walk that line daily. You want to be admired but not envied, not accused. You want to look natural but better, holy but alluring. You want to be remembered but not discussed, visible but untouched. In a way, it's impossible. But that doesn't stop you from trying. You even begin to internalize it. When you feel beautiful on the rare day your skin is clear, your braids tight, your veil lying just right, you feel not just attractive, but good. Virtuous, clean, deserving. Because that's what the culture has taught you. Beauty isn't just aesthetics, it's morality. And if you're not beautiful, you worry that you'll never marry, that your husband will stray, that the neighbors will whisper, that the midwife will sigh and mutter something about unbalanced humors, that your soul might somehow be stained by your appearance. So you try. Every day. Even if your fingers are raw from weaving your feet, blistered from walking your nails, ragged from work, you still find time to press rose petals into your wash basin, to tie your hair with a ribbon, to sit in the doorway where the light hits your cheek just so. Because someone might be watching. And because you're watching too. And because in this world, this cold, devout, rule-heavy world, beauty may be your only act of quiet rebellion, or your only path to redemption. The sun is just beginning to rise its pale light, leaking through the cracks in the wooden shutters. You sit up in bed, rub the sleep from your eyes, and reach for the cloth you keep tucked beside your pillow. A scrap of linen still faintly damp with rosewater from the night before. You dab it across your cheeks, not to cleanse really, but to refresh, to prepare. Because every morning is a chance to repair the damage of sleep, to smooth away the creases, tame the hair, correct the face that the night left behind. In medieval life, there's no room for vanity as we'd define it now. Beauty isn't indulgence, it's duty, a social signal, a tool. Whether you're a farmer's daughter, a merchant's wife, or a lady of the court, you step into the world every day knowing that how you appear will influence how you are treated, how you are spoken to, how you are remembered. The first glance matters. The first impression lasts. And in many cases, it's all that you'll be granted. So your morning routine is careful, even if it's brief. You untangle your hair, dry knotted coarse from a restless night. If you're noble, you'll have a comb made from horn or ivory. If you're not, it might be carved wood or a well-smoothed twig. You braid your hair tightly because loose strands are unruly, and unruly is dangerous. You cover it with a veil or wimple or a linen coif, depending on your status and station. Even little girls learn this early. Your hair is not for the world to see. Then your face. You pat at your cheeks with cold water, or if you can spare it, milk. You inspect your skin in the tiny bronze mirror, just polished enough to reflect a warped version of yourself. Are there new spots? Is your complexion splotchy? If so, you'll crush a bit of chalk or white lead with vinegar and smooth it on with your fingers. It'll dry into a powdery film hiding imperfections, making your skin seem cleaner, purer. You're careful not to smile too widely. Smiles stretch the face, show too many teeth, and teeth in this world are a gamble. There are no dentists, no toothpaste. You might chew mint or sage leaves to freshen your breath, but stained or missing teeth are inevitable. That's why noble women learn early to smile with closed lips, to laugh behind veils, to speak softly, and to always, always appear serene. A placid expression is beautiful. It suggests virtue, and virtue is the most admired ornament of all. Even perfume has its place in this careful daily ritual. Not the kinds of perfumes you might imagine, no bottled fragrances or atomizers. Instead, sachets of dried herbs are sewn into your underclothes or tucked between your linen layers. Lavender, rosemary, cloves if you're fortunate. The goal isn't to dazzle, it's to mask. Because bathing is rare. Scent becomes survival. And what of men? You might think they're free from all this pressure, but they're not. For noblemen especially, those in courtly society, appearance matters deeply. Their hair is curled or trimmed to current fashion, their beards shaped carefully, if they wear one at all. A pale complexion is still preferred, though not as obsessively. Strong features, clear skin, and clean fingernails are marks of status. And just like women, men use certain powders to hide blemishes or soften the skin. In Italy, courtly men sometimes even dab on a bit of color to the lips or cheeks, not for seduction, but to show refinement. Clothing plays a major role too. A well-cut tunic or surcoat, a gleaming belt, a carefully fitted hose. These are all extensions of beauty. To be beautiful is to be put together, controlled, expressing not just wealth, but self-discipline. Especially in the courts of Burgundy and France, where nobles judge each other not only on what they wear, but how they wear it. The wrong sleeve shape, the wrong color combination, the wrong hat, and you could be ridiculed, dismissed, or quietly excluded from favor. But no matter your gender, your status, or your land, one truth remains constant. Your beauty is never your own. It belongs to the people who see you. To your father, who hopes to marry you off. To your husband, whose pride depends on your appearance. To your employer, who expects you to represent their household. To the clergy, who measure your virtue against your modesty. To the neighbors who watch for signs of either vanity or decay. And so you spend your days negotiating. How much effort is enough? How much is too much? Too little and you're careless, dirty, lacking discipline. Too much and you're vain, sinful, trying too hard to be seen. This tightrope walk is exhausting, but it's life. You adjust your veil, you blot your forehead, you lower your eyes as you walk past others in the village. And when you catch someone looking just for a second, you wonder, was that admiration or judgment? Later in the day, you pass a painting in the church, a saint or angel pale and solemn, draped in flowing robes. The face is serene, the skin like alabaster, the features softly idealized. The Virgin again, perhaps. Or maybe Saint Catherine. You wonder if they really looked like that. Or if someone, some painter, some monk simply painted what the world expected to see. And in that moment you realize something else. Even in art, beauty is not just a truth. It's a story, carefully told, carefully shaped, carefully chosen, just like you. And so when the day finally ends and you return to your bed, you untie your hair, wipe your cheeks with the last corner of your linen scrap, and lie back in the darkness, wondering whether the face you wore today was beautiful enough, or good enough, or safe enough. Because in the medieval world, those things were never very far apart. The night stretches around you still and quiet, as you lie there, eyes half open, letting the darkness settle like a second blanket. Today's routine still lingers in your body. Your fingertips remember the tension of braiding your hair just right. Your cheeks remember the tingle of chalk and vinegar, and your shoulders remember the heaviness of being seen. You think of what the village girls whispered about earlier, how Lady Isabel's daughter wore a dress with sleeves a bit too tight, and how that meant she must be trying to draw attention. One said she saw her use rouge, just a hint dabbed on her cheeks, like crushed berries. Another scoffed, claimed it made her look flushed and sinful. Then they all giggled, even though, of course, every one of them had considered doing the same thing. That's the strange thing about beauty. In this time, it's desirable but dangerous. You must want it, but not appear to want it. If you're effortlessly lovely, people say God has blessed you. But if you try to be lovely, you're accused of pride, of vanity, of trying to tempt good men from holy paths. And yet every woman tries, because she must. Even the saints, after all, are always shown as beautiful. Not just morally pure, but physically flawless. That high forehead, that pale skin, the serene eyes, always the same pattern. If ugliness is associated with sin, then beauty must be a sign of grace. This belief runs deep. A hunched back, a crooked nose, a birthmark on your cheek, these could be interpreted as signs of moral corruption or worse, evidence of witchcraft. Women were sometimes suspected of sorcery, not because they were hideous, but because their beauty was too perfect. A woman with gleaming hair, luminous skin, and a suspiciously ageless face might just as easily be condemned as adored. You learn quickly to moderate your beauty, to keep it inside certain lines. Take clothing, for example. A woman's dress should flatter but not cling. The neckline must reveal just enough to show a healthy chest, but not enough to provoke thoughts. Sleeves must follow the fashion of the court, but don't copy them too closely, or you'll be seen as pretentious. Bright colors may be admired, but not if they make you stand out too boldly among your neighbors. Even the way you move must suggest control. Walk too quickly, and you seem hasty. Too slowly, and you seem vain. Beauty is a discipline, a language, a kind of performance where the script is always changing, depending on who's watching. And yet, even within these boundaries, women find ways to express themselves. A particular way of tying a veil, a favorite shade of blue, a hidden embroidery beneath a sleeve cuff, something only they know is there. These are quiet rebellions, small declarations of identity within a world that tries so hard to erase individual taste in favor of collective decorum. You remember how your grandmother once told you that blue was the color of purity, not just in the eyes of the church, but in the eyes of potential husbands. The Virgin Mary was always painted in blue. That's why noblewomen began to wear it more often, and why the dye became so expensive. It had to be imported. It had to be crushed from lapis lazuli. It had to be rare. The rarer the color, the more divine you appeared. And yet peasants would still try. They'd pluck blue-dyed flowers from the fields, crush them with stones, smear the faint residue into cloth, just for a whisper of the color. It didn't last. It faded quickly. But it was enough to feel for a moment like you were part of something greater, like beauty was within reach. Sometimes when you visit the town, you watch the women on the edges, the ones who don't follow the rules as closely. The herbalists, the widows, the ones with weathered hands and deep-set eyes who wear no powder and tie their hair in rough cords. They are respected, sometimes feared. Their beauty lies in their mystery, in their refusal to perform. They've aged past the point of pleasing others and now live by different rules. You wonder what that feels like. To be seen for who you are, not how well you reflect what someone else wants. But you're not there yet. You still rise each morning to wash your face, to tuck your hair, to choose the right fabric for the day. You still think about how the candlelight catches your jawline, or whether your sleeves flatter your shoulders. You still notice when others notice you. You still want to be seen. Because even though you're told that vanity is a sin, you're also told quietly, constantly, that beauty is the only way you will ever be loved. Not just by others, but maybe even by God. So as you turn in bed, pulling your blanket tighter around your shoulders, you wonder, will tomorrow be a good face day? Will the breeze soften your cheeks? Will your hair behave beneath your veil? Will you catch someone looking and feel the warmth of admiration or the chill of judgment? There's no way to know, but you'll prepare just in case, because that's what every woman does in your world. She gets up, she conceals, she reveals, she adjusts, she performs, and she hopes for a kinder mirror than the one she faced today. Morning light filters into your chamber again, and you rise not with excitement, but with quiet determination. Another day, another chance to get it right. You run your fingers across your cheek before you've even sat up, checking for bumps, dryness, signs of last night's poor rest. Then you reach for the cloth at your bedside, dry this time, and you make your way to the basin where yesterday's water still rests in a ceramic bowl. It's cold, but you splash it over your face anyway. The shock stirs you awake. You look into the polished metal mirror. It's warped dull around the edges, and every flaw seems exaggerated in its bent reflection. You resist the urge to look away, because in this world you don't ignore your face. You manage it. You've grown used to this dance, the ritual of correcting, smoothing, disguising. If you had access to better materials, you might grind almonds into a paste for your skin, or use elderflower water to reduce puffiness. Maybe beeswax mixed with oil to soften the lips. But you don't. Not today. So you press your fingertips to your temples and massage the tension away. You braid your hair carefully, tightly, checking the mirror often. Every hair has a place. Every loop and tie matters. Because when your head covering goes on, it needs to sit perfectly secure, straight, proper. Today, you choose a light veil. It's plain, but freshly washed and pressed, and it smells faintly of lye and sun. There's something about linen against the skin that feels righteous, clean. Like you're dressing not for beauty, but for order. And that too is beautiful. As you dress, you remember the sermon from last week. The priest had said something about vanity, about how women who spend too much time on their appearances invite demons to whisper into their souls. But that same day, the lady of the manor arrived at Mass, in a blue gown trimmed with fur, her veil embroidered with golden thread. Everyone stared, admired, whispered, but no one condemned her. Because beauty, when paired with wealth, becomes virtue. It's only vanity when the poor try it. You tuck in your laces, smooth the folds of your gown, and glance down at your shoes, worn but mended. Your reflection catches your eye again in the metal plate, and you try to see yourself as others might. Not as a soul, not as a laborer or daughter or wife, but as an object moving through the public eye. And in that moment, beauty is no longer about how you feel, it's about how well you perform. You step outside. The street is busy. The market buzzes with morning energy. Baskets of onions, bolts of cloth, barrels of dried fish. But amid the noise, the beauty performance continues. You see it in the carefully tied braids of the baker's daughter. The blush on the merchant's wife's cheeks, rouge, dabbed subtly with a wet cloth, just enough to look like health. The polished boots of the apothecary's apprentice. Even the children wear ribbons in their hair, stained from boiled berries. And then you spot someone else, the widow. She stands quietly at the edge of the square, her veil darker than yours, her dress more severe. She speaks little moves slowly and makes no effort to be noticed. Yet people watch her. Her posture, her restraint, it demands attention. She has become something else, beyond beauty perhaps, or something deeper. She is the kind of woman who is no longer expected to perform. And yet, in her austerity, she seems more powerful than all the others. You wonder if that's the end goal, to age into invisibility and somehow regain control of your own image, to stop being viewed and finally start seeing yourself clearly. But for now, you still live inside the gaze of others. You trade a few coins for flower nod politely to the cloth seller. Adjust your veil when you catch a reflection hole in a polished shield hanging on the blacksmith's tradition. Every movement is calculated because every movement is observed. Later, you pass a young man at the well. He glances at you once quickly, then away. You don't know what he saw in that moment, whether he judged, admired, dismissed, but the weight of his glance remains with you for hours. That's how delicate the performance is. One look can shape your entire day. When you return home, you remove your head covering and let your scalp breathe. You undo your braid, run your fingers through your hair, press your knuckles to your temples again. The mirror on the wall reflects your face as it is now flushed from sun-lined slightly from squinting lips, dry cheeks bare. You look tired, not radiant, not angelic, just human. And for a moment that feels dangerous, but also liberating. Because in the privacy of your room with no one watching you, remember who you were before the performance began. A girl who liked wildflowers more than braids, who didn't know the rules of sleeves and veils, who smiled without worrying what her teeth looked like. That girl still exists beneath the chalk and linen and obedience. You touch your face gently, like a mother might a sleeping child, and exhale. Because tomorrow you'll rise again. You'll play the part again. But for now, in this quiet space where beauty doesn't have to be currency, you let your face be just a face. No rouge, no powder, just you. The light has faded, and the candles flicker in their iron sconces, casting gold along the walls as you sit on the edge of your bed, slowly unwinding the day. You pull the pins from your hair one by one, letting the braids unravel in loose coils around your shoulders. It's always a strange moment seeing yourself in the mirror, after hours of effort, after a whole day of holding it together. Of holding yourself together. You almost don't recognize your own reflection. The veil is off. The bodice loosened. The powdered skin has flaked away, leaving your face bare, marked by sun, by wind, by worry. A few faint lines have begun to form at the corners of your eyes. They don't bother you, not really, but they do remind you of time. And time for a woman in your world is never kind to beauty. In the medieval mind, youth and beauty are near synonyms. A young face, smooth, unlined, flushed with life, is prized above all else. And when that youth begins to fade, so does the attention. So does the value. A woman approaching 30 may already be considered faded. Not always aloud, but in glances, in whispers. You've seen it before. Older women becoming quieter, their clothing darker, their heads covered more fully. Not because they must, but because it's expected. Their beauty no longer commands admiration. So now they must command something else: dignity, wisdom, restraint. That's the thing about medieval beauty. It isn't just about physical appeal. It's tied to your entire identity, your worth as a daughter, as a wife, as a mother. A beautiful woman is assumed to be moral, obedient, modest, and a not beautiful woman. She has to work harder to prove her soul. It's not fair, of course, but it's the way things are. And then there's the other side, the women whose beauty becomes a threat. You've heard the stories. The merchant's wife, too lovely by half, who caused a scandal when her husband left her alone in the market. The widow who didn't grieve long enough, who wore bright fabric and smiled too soon. The girl with the honey-colored hair, said to bewitch every man in town. Some say she's been followed. Some say she's been worst. Some say she deserves it. In your world, beauty is a double-edged sword. Adored but dangerous. Praised but policed. Everyone wants it, but not too much. Never too much. And that brings you to the deeper truth: beauty must always be controlled. By clothing, by posture, by behavior. A beautiful woman who knows she's beautiful and dares to act like it. She's arrogant, or worse, seductive. Men must never be held responsible for their wandering eyes or hands. It's the woman's fault for dressing so well, for smiling too brightly, for walking in a way that drew attention. You've grown up learning this. It's in the way your mother gently corrected the way you stood. It's in the way your aunt tightened your corset, saying, "Better to be uncomfortable than to appear careless." It's in the way the priest's voice changed when he warned girls about the dangers of being too admired. You were taught to be beautiful, but never to want to be. And yet you do want it. Of course you do. Because beauty in your world opens doors that are otherwise locked. It softens rejection. It invites opportunity. A nobleman might glance twice. A merchant might offer a better deal. A midwife might handle you more gently. Sometimes beauty is the difference between being heard and being ignored. So you pursue it carefully, methodically. Not with vanity, but with strategy. You learn which veil colors flatter your skin tone. You understand how the angle of candlelight affects your face during evening gatherings. You practice lowering your eyes at the right moment, speaking softly enough to sound gentle, but clearly enough to be remembered. You're not trying to seduce. You're trying to survive. Because that's what beauty is when the world doesn't give women much else. A form of survival. You lie back now, pulling the covers up to your chin. The day has taken its toll. Your feet ache. Your scalp is sore from too tight braids. Your shoulders heavy with the weight of appearances. But there's still something underneath all of it, a quiet pride. Because today you managed it again. You were seen. You were not humiliated. You navigated the glances and whispers and judgments. You were beautiful enough. And perhaps that's all you can ask for. Your eyelids flutter. The bed is cool. Your hair spills across the pillow like a question. And tomorrow, when you wake again, the ritual will begin anew. You'll wash your face, comb your hair, lift your chin, and step once more into a world that expects everything from your appearance but gives nothing in return. And yet you'll do it. Because you know what every medieval woman knows. You have nothing more powerful than the way you are seen. The morning arrives before your eyes open. You feel it in the shift of air, in the sound of footsteps passing outside, in the rhythm of the village beginning its daily stir. You stretch slowly, half dreaming, and for a moment you lie there untouched by the mirror, the fabric, the gaze. For a moment, you are just a body breathing, a woman not yet a performance. But then you rise and the world returns. There's always a brief hesitation as you reach for the veil, the first reminder that your face isn't fully yours. You wet your linen cloth in the basin, again scrub your cheeks, pinch a bit of color into them, and begin the process. Braiding, lacing, covering, preparing. The mask may be soft, but it is still a mask. As you braid your hair, you think of the girls in the village. The younger ones, 12, 13, just beginning to understand what beauty means. They don't know yet how heavy it is, how quickly it turns from something innocent into something strategic. Their cheeks still flush naturally, their eyes still sparkle without fear. But it won't last long. Soon they'll be taught to observe and compare, to look at the noble's daughter and whisper that her forehead is perfectly high, that her complexion is almost like paper, that her voice is so gentle it barely touches the air. They'll begin to see beauty as something external, something to chase, not something to live inside. You watch this unfold as the years pass. You see how the young begin to imitate, pinching their cheeks harder, standing straighter, speaking less. They learn quickly what earns praise, and even quicker what draws criticism. But there's another layer to it, an invisible thread that binds beauty to value. A girl who is praised for her appearance is suddenly worth more. She is noticed, matched, protected. She draws attention in the market, is spoken to more gently, is eyed with interest by mothers of eligible sons. You've watched it happen too many times to deny it. And what of the others, the plain, the awkward, the ones whose skin is marked, or whose figures refuse to fit the ideal? They are taught other roles, the quiet ones, the clever ones, the useful ones. Their beauty may not open doors, so they learn to knock in other ways, through service, through skill, through submission. But the message is clear: beauty is a shortcut. If you have it, the world bends slightly in your favor. If you don't, you'll have to bend instead. And you wonder as you secure the final knot of your veil how much of your own worth has been wrapped up in this illusion. How many kind words were meant for you, and how many were meant for your smooth skin, your soft voice, your lowered eyes, You've heard tales of women who refused to play the game. A noble woman who cut her hair short in protest. A nun who scrubbed her face raw so no man would look twice. A peasant girl who ran barefoot, bareheaded through the village and was later called wild, possessed, even dangerous. They were not admired. They were feared. Because in a world obsessed with beauty, the woman who rejects it has power. Still, you're not one of them. Not today. Today you blend in. You soften your voice. You make sure the fabric of your sleeves falls just right, that your shoes are brushed, that your hands are clean. You nod when spoken to. You smile not widely, but sweetly. And you watch. Because part of beauty in this world is studying it in others. Who wears it well, who performs it easily, who stumbles under its weight. You take mental notes. You adjust accordingly. At the manor today, the noblewomen arrive for a gathering. You serve bread and wine in silence, eyes lowered. But you can't help glancing at their garments, silk and brocade colors that shimmer even in the dim candlelight. They wear hennens, tall, pointed hats draped with gauze, and their foreheads are bare and smooth, gleaming like ivory. They laugh gently behind painted fans, and you wonder if they ever doubt themselves, if they ever wonder who they are underneath it all. One of them meets your gaze for a split second. You drop your eyes instantly, heart pounding. It's a dangerous thing to stare too long. Beauty and hierarchy are intertwined. Looking directly at a woman like her, especially when you wear wool and linen, is like challenging her claim to the throne. And yet for that brief moment, you felt equal, human to human, woman to woman. Later in the quiet of the kitchen, you catch your reflection in the side of a kettle. Your veil has slipped a little. Your braid has loosened. Your cheeks are smudged. You see the face beneath the mask, the one you wear when no one's looking, and you wonder if that face is still enough. But before the doubt sets in too deep, you gather your things and return home. You wash. You rebraid. You fold away the day. The mask, the performance, the quiet ache of being seen and judged. It all rests beside you now. You lie down, close your eyes, and remind yourself that beauty isn't just something others grant you. Sometimes it's something you claim in silence, when the world isn't watching, when the mirror turns its face away, and when you whisper just before sleep, "I am still here." Sleep comes slower tonight. Not because you're restless, but because your mind has wandered too deep into questions that don't have easy answers. You lie still, your hands folded over your stomach, beneath the blanket, and stare into the dark. No light from the fire now. No shadows. Just the sound of the wind slipping through the eaves and the faint breath of someone sleeping across the room. You're thinking about the cost of all this. The hours you've spent braiding, plucking, smoothing, tucking. The worry that takes up quiet space in your thoughts. Whether you look too tired today, whether your veil fell out of place, whether someone saw that spot you missed beneath your jaw. How many years have you spent trying to perfect something that refuses to be perfect, and still the world demands it? The truth is, beauty has never been passive. Not in your time, not in your world. It's not something bestowed like a blessing. It's something earned, maintained, guarded. You are taught to polish it like silver, but never flaunt it. You are told it should glow like a holy relic, visible, admired, but never touched. And when you fail, when your face betrays your effort, when a blemish blooms across your cheek or your complexion dulls from illness or fatigue, the world pulls back. Just a little. Compliments vanish. Eyes look past you. People ask if you're feeling well, not out of concern, but because beauty is expected, anything less is a disruption. You've learned to navigate this without letting it break you. Not every woman does. You think of your neighbor Miriam, quiet, middle-aged, unmarried. She walks with her head down, and her hair always covered, not out of modesty, but because she no longer wants to be seen. She was once called pretty years ago before her mother died, and her skin began to blotch. Now people speak of her in the past tense as though beauty were her only story, and that chapter is closed. You think of the girl at market who wears too much rouge, how the other women whisper about her shameless, they say, trying too hard. But still, you've seen her smile when a man looks her way, as if even that flicker of attention is worth the scorn she gets for chasing it. And you think of yourself somewhere between them, still young enough to be seen, still cautious enough not to push the limits. You walk the fine line each day, just enough powder, just enough modesty, just enough light in your eyes to seem alive but not inviting. Because in the end, beauty is less about being and more about balancing. And the strangest part, you've never stopped wanting it. Even though you know it's exhausting. Even though you know it's conditional. Even though you know it will fade, and when it does, the world won't flinch, it will just look away. Still, you want it. Not for power, not even for love, but for acknowledgement. To be seen. To have your presence confirm that you are real, that you matter, that you are part of something greater than yourself. You turn on your side now, eyes closed. The straw mattress creaks softly beneath you. Your braid unravels slightly beneath your head. Your hands are cold, but you don't reach for the blanket. You're thinking still of how beauty weaves itself into the quiet corners of your life. It's in the way you arrange the flowers in your window, in the stitches you sew into the edge of your apron just for you, in the way you watch the light catch on the edge of a jug, or the way you wipe dust from the mirror even when you can't clearly see your reflection. You pursue beauty not just to be beautiful, but to experience it, to feel close to it, to feel worthy of it. You remember a line from a sermon once: God created the lilies of the field, and they did not toil or spin. But you do. You toil. You spin. You scrub and bind and blend and bow. And maybe, just maybe, it makes your beauty even more real than theirs, because yours is chosen, maintained, fought for. And in the dark, when the performance ends, when no one's watching, and the veil is folded, and the mirror is turned to the wall, there is a strange peace in that. Your beauty has never been effortless, but it has always been yours. Morning breaks slowly, with the kind of light that doesn't quite reach the corners of the room. It spills in through the slats in the shutters, soft and cold, landing across the floor in crooked lines. You rise before the rest of the house stirs, drawn not by duty or noise, but by habit. Beauty, after all, waits for no one. You move quietly so as not to wake anyone, and pour the last of yesterday's water into the basin. It's cold, cloudy. You splash it over your face anyway. The shock is familiar, a reminder that you are awake, alive, expected. You dab your skin dry with the cleanest corner of your apron and begin your silent ritual. You smooth your hands over your cheeks, checking for texture. You press at your temples, trying to coax a little color back into your skin. You examine the edge of your lips in the mirror and wonder if they've thinned slightly, or if you're just imagining it. You know every line on your face, every blemish, every change, because you've been trained to, and not just by the mirror, but by the world around you. A world that watches as closely as you do, that notices when your veil isn't pinned just right, or when your sleeves are last year's fashion, that quietly shifts its treatment of you, depending on how well you uphold your role. Because make no mistake, beauty is a role, one you were cast in as a girl before you even knew what the word meant. You inherited it along with your first veil, your first pair of fitted shoes, your first whispered warning about what happens to girls who are too bold or too plain or too proud. You remember being told you must be pleasing but not proud, modest but not invisible, attractive but not inviting, an impossible script, but still you follow it. Everyone does. Today, as you prepare yourself, you think about how beauty shifts depending on the room you're in. In the village square, you're expected to be neat, approachable, sun-kissed, but not ruddy. You wear muted colors. You smile politely. You keep your hair tightly bound. You're not trying to impress anyone, but you must appear respectable, especially if there are matchmakers about. Especially if the merchant's son is walking his cart past the well again. In the manor house, everything sharpens. The standards are higher. You must be refined. Hands still back straight, face calm. You notice how the noblewomen hold their mouths slightly parted, not in surprise, but as though they're about to speak something important. They walk slowly, gliding. You mimic them slightly when you serve them bread or pour wine. Not enough to be noticed, just enough to learn. At church, beauty becomes a holy thing. You wear your plainest dress, your cleanest veil. You make sure your sleeves reach your wrists, your hair is entirely hidden. Your face is calm, expressionless. Here to be beautiful is to be still, silent, like a saint painted on the wall, pale and timeless. And then there's the home, the one place you might let your shoulders drop, your veil fall back, your skin breathe. But even here there are eyes, sisters, aunts, grandmothers, watching, correcting, telling you gently that you'll never find a husband if you don't learn to hold your back straighter, if you don't wash your face every morning, if you don't keep your nails clean, your lips soft, your voice gentle. They don't mean harm. They love you. But love doesn't shield you from the standard. It teaches you how to endure it. You've also begun to notice that not all beauty is spoken. Sometimes it's a glance held too long, a compliment that sounds more like a test, a man commenting on your eyes, but only after checking to see if anyone's listening. These are the moments that make you shrink, not because you're ashamed, but because you're afraid of being too visible. Because beauty can also be dangerous. A woman too admired becomes a target. Her name whispered, her virtue questioned. The same features that once earned her favor suddenly mark her as cunning, seductive, manipulative. It doesn't take much: a laugh too loud, a smile too long, a dress too well fitted, and the rumors start. So you learn to dim yourself. Just enough. You take care not to be the most beautiful girl in the room. Only close enough. Not the brightest dress. Not the richest rouge. You stay in the soft middle, where admiration feels safe, where the gaze of others is warm but not burning. And still you long to shine just a little. You think about that sometimes. What it would be like to be unapologetically beautiful, to let your hair down in public, to walk without lowering your eyes, to wear the brightest blue, the softest veil, the silkiest ribbon in your braid, to laugh without covering your mouth, to be seen without fear. But that kind of beauty is not safe. So you pack that dream away, fold it carefully, like a gown you're saving for someday. You return to your mirror. You adjust your veil. You press color into your cheeks. You look at yourself one last time before stepping into the day. And you nod. Not with pride. Not with joy. but with readiness. Because in this world, beauty is not something you feel, it's something you perform. You're in the market by mid-morning, your basket slung over your arm, your veil adjusted just so. The sun catches the dust in the air, making everything look hazy golden, like a painting. But the moment is far from romantic. The press of bodies, the calls from merchants, the clatter of wheels over uneven stones. It all creates a kind of chaos that makes you grip your basket a little tighter. Still amid the noise, the game continues. You catch glimpses of other women as they move through the crowd, each performing their version of beauty. One wears a delicate wreath of dried herbs woven into her braid. Another carries herself with practiced grace, posture tall despite the weight of her goods. A third wears a pale blue ribbon around her throat, a tiny accent that draws the eye without saying a word. It's subtle but unmistakable. Everyone here is doing something to be seen. You pass a stall selling polished glass beads. They sparkle in the light, and you can't help but pause your fingers, brushing over the cool, perfect surfaces. The merchant sees your interest and smiles. "They'd suit your eyes," he says. You smile politely, murmur something non-committal, and move on. But the compliment lingers longer than the beads. That's how it works sometimes. One kind word, a gesture of beauty acknowledged, and you walk taller for the rest of the day. But not every look is kind. You round the corner and nearly bump into a group of boys. One whistles low, mutters something just loud enough to catch. You feel your stomach clench, but you keep walking. You know better than to respond. A woman who calls attention to her own mistreatment risks being blamed for it. She must have done something, they'll say. She must have looked a certain way, walked a certain way. That's the trap. Beauty is demanded, but punished the moment it stirs desire in the wrong heart. You've learned to live in that narrow space where you must be pleasing but not provocative, where you must care but never too much, where you're expected to put effort into your appearance but you must never admit you're trying. It's a contradiction you've never resolved. You doubt anyone has. You pass the church on your way home and something about its cool, shadowed interior calls to you. You step inside and for a moment, you're wrapped in silence. The light filtering through the stained glass is soft, holy. You sit on one of the wooden benches, hands folded in your lap, and look up at the painted saints. Their faces are pale and solemn eyes cast heavenward. They are beautiful, but not earthly, untouchable, unquestioned. You wonder if this too is part of the standard, not just to be pretty, but to be pure. The kind of beauty that suffers quietly, that never argues, that accepts attention, praise, even exploitation without complaint. The Virgin Mary is the ideal every girl is taught to mirror. Modest, gentle, always clean, always quiet, and above all beautiful in the way that makes others feel calm, not challenged. You think of how many times you've swallowed your anger, your fatigue, your opinions just to seem nicer, prettier, more agreeable. Not because you wanted to, but because it was easier. Because beauty isn't just in the face, it's in behavior. And in your world, the most beautiful women are the ones who never make others uncomfortable, even when they're suffering. You leave the church with that thought still clinging to you. On the way home, you pass your reflection in a small pool of water. You stop. For once, you look long. You don't adjust your veil. You don't correct your posture. You don't smile. You just look. And what do you see? Not the perfection others expect. Not the ideal the priest would praise. Not the shimmering standard of courtly songs and romantic poetry. But something older. deeper. You see a woman who has learned to survive within impossible lines. A woman who wakes early to soften her face, who walks carefully so her steps don't echo too loud, who smiles just enough to seem kind, but not so much that it becomes an invitation. You see someone who has carried the weight of beauty as a duty and done it well. But tonight, when you wash your face, when you untie your braid, when you finally step out of the costume of the day, you will let go of the gaze. You will let your body rest. You will stop measuring your worth in glances and whispers, and for a few quiet hours before the world calls on you to perform again, you will simply be. The quiet of evening settles over your home like a shawl. Dinner is done, the dishes scrubbed and stacked, the hearth swept. The oil lamp burns low in the corner, casting a soft amber halo over the worn wooden floor. You're alone now, no duties left, no voices to answer to. Just the familiar hush of the hour when the world turns inward. This is when the reflection feels sharpest. You stand before the small, polished plate of metal hung on the wall, the one you've used for years. It doesn't flatter. It warps your features slightly, curves your cheeks, stretches your chin, but you know the shape of yourself within it better than anyone else. You've studied that face in every light, in every mood. You've whispered to it, fussed over it, forgiven it. And now you look into it with an entirely different thought. Who taught you to look this way? Not how to look this way, but why? Was it your mother gently brushing your hair, saying, "Sit still so you'll look nice"? Was it the midwife pinching your cheeks before the harvest festival and muttering, "You'll catch a lad's eye this way"? Was it the girls in the village, their subtle competition and quieter envy, trading ribbon colors and smoothed brows like currency? Or was it the world itself? Was it the endless stream of songs and poems that praised women, not for their wit nor their work, but for their golden curls, their milky skin, their delicate hands? You've heard the minstrels. You've heard the stories. A woman loved for her laugh is rare. A woman adored for her cleverness, rarer still. But a woman worshipped for her beauty. That's the chorus echoing through every castle hall and muddy inn alike. And it works. Men build legends around women they barely know because they are beautiful. They fight wars, compose sonnets, cross oceans, all for a face. Never mind if the woman behind that face had anything to say about it. You sit on the edge of your bed now. Veil removed, hair loose down your back. Your shift is soft, the seams familiar. You breathe easier in these clothes, no stays, no bindings, no stiff embroidery scraping your collarbone. And still a part of you wonders, am I beautiful right now? Would anyone say so in this state, barefaced, tired, unadorned? Is beauty something you can carry when no one's looking? The medieval mind would likely say no. Beauty exists in public. It's for others to witness, to judge, to respond to. In solitude, your beauty has no purpose, no audience. So what is it then? But you feel something in this moment, something real, a kind of beauty that has nothing to do with surface or symmetry. It's in your stillness, in your survival, in your resistance to the roles you've been given, even if only in the privacy of your thoughts. You recall how the village healer once said that certain flowers only bloom at night, hidden from the sun, seen only by the stars. Maybe your beauty is like that. Not showy, not dazzling, but steady, deep, revealed only in silence. You lie back, hair fanned across your pillow. The coolness of the linen soothes the warmth of your skin. And for once, you don't think about tomorrow's mask. You don't run through the tasks you'll need to perform to stay visible, to stay worthy. You think about how far you've come. From the child who believed beauty was just about hair and dresses, to the woman who now knows it is a language, a burden, a weapon, a shield. You have learned to wield it gently, carefully, to let it serve you without letting it define you. And perhaps, just perhaps, that knowledge is the truest beauty of all. You close your eyes, and in that darkness, for the first time in a long while, you feel completely whole. You dream in fragments that night, faces without names, candles that don't stay lit, voices echoing from behind drawn curtains. When you wake, it's still dark. Not yet morning, not quite night. The in-between hour. You lie there motionless, eyes open, staring into a black ceiling you cannot see, and you feel it again, that odd tension between who you are and how you must appear. There's something about these middle-of-the-night moments that unravels the performance. You're not anyone's daughter, not a serving girl, not a future wife. You're just breath and body. No veil, no rouge. No need to smile or smooth or soften. No beauty to manage. And yet even here it lingers. The feeling of being watched not by people but by expectation itself. Because beauty doesn't sleep. It hangs in the corners of your room like a question. You shift beneath the blanket, drawing it closer, and think of the stories told around the hearth. Tales of noble women whose beauty started wars. Of queens who bathed in goat's milk to preserve their youth. Of witches who were punished not because they were evil, but because they were too beautiful or not beautiful enough, depending on the teller. You've come to realize that beauty in your world is always suspicious. Too much, and you're a temptress. Too little, and you're ignored. Change too suddenly, and people whisper of curses or sin. Wear a ribbon that flatters you, and it's called vanity. Remove it, and they wonder if you're ill. There is no win, only adjustment. You remember a sermon once where the priest said women must strive to be pure in soul and simple in appearance. You were young. You didn't understand then why that made your mother's jaw tighten. Now you do, because simple never meant effortless. It meant invisible. And purity, that was just another way to control. A form of beauty stripped of agency. It meant behaving in a way that didn't draw notice or challenge power or make anyone uncomfortable. It meant being quiet, small, decorative. But you are none of those things, not entirely. You remember moments of rebellion. The time you wore that red thread in your braid even after your aunt told you it was too bold. The time you laughed too loud at the feast and saw a nobleman look twice. The time you refused to lower your eyes when another girl made a cruel remark about your skin. Small moments, but they stitched a truth into your bones. You are not here just to be seen. You are here to be. And yet you do still seek beauty, even knowing the burden, the risk. You still gather wildflowers to place on your windowsill. Still mend your gown with tiny invisible stitches. Still tilt your head just right to catch the morning light in your eyes. Not for anyone else. Not entirely. Because there's a kind of defiance in taking pride in your own reflection when the world tries to make it belong to others. And beauty, when you own it for yourself, feels different. Less fragile. Less exhausting. It's the difference between standing in front of a mirror to prepare and standing there just to admire. Between brushing your hair because it's expected and brushing it because it feels good. Between doing it for the gaze and doing it for the self. As the sky outside begins to lighten, you rise slowly and dress in silence. The usual motions, washing, binding, folding, pinning, feel less like preparation today and more like ritual. Not for others, for you. You catch your reflection again, this time in a window pane blurred by morning dew. Your skin is pale from sleep, your braid uneven, but your eyes meet your own, steady and bright. And you nod, not with self-admiration, but with recognition. This is what they never taught you, that beauty can be quiet. It doesn't have to dazzle. It doesn't have to win approval. It doesn't even have to last. It just has to feel like yours. You step outside the basket on your hip, the morning cool against your cheeks. The world smells of ash and bread and damp earth. Someone waves from across the lane and you wave back, smile forming naturally. Not for effect, not for approval. Just because. And in that simple moment you understand. You are not beautiful because the world says so. You are beautiful because you exist fully, honestly, and entirely as you are. The wind picks up around noon, rustling the thatched roofs and sending dust skittering across the path as you make your way back from the well. The sky is washed out gray, the kind that makes everything feel soft and distant. You clutch the heavy bucket to your side arms, aching, but your mind is elsewhere, still caught in the undercurrents of yesterday's thoughts. You've been noticing things more sharply now. Little details. The way the baker's daughter twists a ribbon through her braid, only when she knows the miller's son will be nearby. The way your neighbor, a widow in her 40s, has started letting the grays show in her hair and walks straighter for it, as if declaring, I no longer need to prove myself to you. You see girls testing their beauty like unfamiliar tools, and older women slowly laying theirs down like burdens. But today it's the men you're watching. You've started to realize how beauty isn't just something women carry, it's something men measure and manipulate and mirror back. Not with cosmetics or ribbons, but with glances. With praise given sparingly like alms. With questions asked only of the prettiest girl in the room. With silence given like punishment to those who fall short of the standard. You've seen how one well-timed compliment can reshape a girl's entire week. How one absent word can send her into spirals of doubt. And you've begun to wonder how much of your beauty has ever truly been yours. Because if beauty only exists when it's seen, when it's noticed, when it's granted, then it's not something you are. It's something you perform for someone else. And that realization stings. You stop by the garden wall and sit letting the stone cool your palms. The village children play a short distance away, their laughter high and unburdened. A little girl chases a hoop hare flying free, her tunic streaked with mud. She doesn't know yet. She hasn't been told that she must tame that hair clean, that face soften those movements. She runs like she belongs in the world. But soon enough, someone will pull her aside. Soon enough, someone will tell her that beauty is not something wild, that it must be measured, mannered, controlled, that she must earn it. You think of when that moment came for you. It wasn't a single event. It was 100 tiny instructions. Fold your hands. Lower your gaze. Don't speak unless spoken to. Smile more. Speak less. Sit up straighter. Don't eat too fast. Don't laugh too loud. Don't draw too much attention, but also don't fade. Because a girl who isn't looked at is invisible. But a girl who's looked at too much, dangerous. So you learned the dance. Learned how to hover in that middle space. Not too bold, not too meek, not too plain, not too proud. You learned how to disappear just enough. And now years later you see the scars it's left. Not on your body, but in your thoughts. How you hesitate before speaking. How you gauge your reflection not for joy, but for acceptability. How you second-guess every choice of ribbon or gesture or silence, asking yourself, will this make me more worthy? Will this make me more loved? And here's the quiet tragedy. So many women live their whole lives like this, believing that if they are just beautiful enough, they will finally be safe, loved, respected. But the truth, you're beginning to grasp, slowly, stubbornly, like a root pushing through stone, is that beauty is not the guarantee you were promised. It's a gamble. One day, someone may love you for it. Another day, someone may harm you because of it, or dismiss you, or mock you, or claim you. You take a deep breath and stand again, the bucket heavy in your arms. As you walk, you feel the ache in your shoulders, the burn in your hands, the steadiness in your steps. None of these are beautiful things, but they are yours. And that means something. That means everything. You reach your door, set the bucket down, and glance once more at your reflection in the small dark window pane. You look tired, windblown, serious. But for the first time, you don't adjust. You just meet your own gaze and nod. Let them look or don't. Either way, I remain. The afternoon fades into evening, and the colors of the world begin to dim. The light that once danced off polished pewter and golden braids now slips away, drawing everything in soft lines and long shadows. You sit by the window, your sewing in your lap. Needle paused mid-stitch. You're not thinking about the hem in your hands anymore. You're thinking about legacy, what beauty leaves behind. You've seen portraits in the manor house, painted ladies with high foreheads and unblinking eyes. Immortalized in gilded frames, their elegance frozen in time. But even as you studied those faces perfectly composed and impossibly still, you always wondered, what did she think, that lady in the painting? Was she proud of her image, trapped by it? Did she ever long to be remembered for something other than the slope of her nose or the shape of her jaw? Because if history only preserves beauty and not the person beneath it, then perhaps it's not a compliment after all. Perhaps it's a kind of forgetting. You think of your grandmother, long gone now, but vividly present in memory. She wasn't beautiful by the world's standard, at least not after age softened her face and stooped her back. But she had eyes that sparkled like river stones and a laugh that filled rooms. You remember how she would hum while stirring stew, how she whispered secrets to her hens, how her hands, rough and veined, braided your hair with gentle precision. No one painted her. No songs were written. No suitors penned odes to her beauty. And yet her presence lives in you more vividly than any saint on a chapel wall. That's when it settles over you, slow and warm and steady, the realization that beauty doesn't have to be remembered in paint or poetry. Sometimes it's remembered in the way someone made you feel, the warmth of a touch, the confidence in a glance, the safety in a smile that asked nothing in return. You look down at your own hands, now slightly calloused, a nick on your thumb, a little crooked from years of work. Not elegant, not painted, but capable, strong, kind. And isn't that a kind of beauty too? You remember when you once tried to hide your hands during a feast, folding them tightly in your lap, so no one would see the smudges of garden dirt left behind. You didn't want to seem rough. You wanted to seem delicate, refined, like the noble girls who never had to scrub a floor or carry a pail of water. But now you think, maybe that was the wrong measure. Maybe beauty isn't found in softness, but in usefulness. Maybe it's not about being adorned, but being alive. You glance around the room, the quilt you patched last winter, the herbs hanging to dry near the hearth, the worn stool you mended, the stew you seasoned just right. These are not decorations. They're not designed to draw admiration, but they are acts of care, expressions of skill, quiet evidence that you were here and that your presence mattered. And isn't that what beauty is supposed to do, to matter, not to dazzle, not to impress, but to say in the language of shape and color and scent and sound, this is real, this is worthy, this is enough. You hear laughter from outside. The neighbors' daughters skipping rope, their voices rising and falling like birdsong. You smile. Their innocence glows, still untouched by rules or roles. But soon they too will learn the dance. Maybe, though, you can teach them a new step. Maybe you'll braid their hair without commenting on how it makes their faces prettier. Maybe you'll tell them they are radiant when they're kind, when they're strong, when they're curious. Maybe you'll let them see you with your hair undone, with your apron stained with your laughter loud. And maybe, just maybe, they'll learn that beauty doesn't come from being seen, but from being whole. You set down your sewing. You stretch your arms, the fabric falling into your lap in soft folds. The light outside is nearly gone now. But you don't rush to light the lamp. There's peace in this dusk, a kind of grace that doesn't require perfection. You breathe it in. You sit with it. And in that gentle golden silence, you feel for the first time in days completely beautiful. Night has fully settled now, cloaking the village in velvet quiet. The hearth crackles low, its warmth spreading across the floor in gentle pulses. You move slowly through your final tasks, folding the linens, banking the fire, placing your shoes neatly by the door, not out of duty, but with intention. Every movement feels like a goodbye to the day, a closing ceremony for all the small performances that came before. And as you do, a deeper question hums beneath it all. What does it mean to live in a body that is always seen but not always understood? You've spent your life shaping yourself to a vision handed down by mothers, by priests, by poets, by the village boys leaning on fences. You've been told what beauty is supposed to look like, how it's supposed to behave, what it's allowed to want. And somewhere along the way you started measuring yourself against it. Even when you swore you wouldn't. Even when you tried to believe you were free from that need. Because freedom is hard when you've been raised to think of beauty as both armor and currency. You needed it to be safe, to be noticed, to be chosen. But the more you relied on it, the more it required of you. It never gave without asking something in return. And tonight, as you sit on the edge of your bed, brushing your hair, with slow, even strokes, you finally allow yourself to name that truth. Beauty has never been a gift. It has been a task, and you've done it well. Quietly, skillfully, day after day. But now you're tired, not of yourself, just of the pressure to be constantly presentable, constantly palatable. To smile on command, to adjust, to perform, to soften every edge of yourself so others would feel comfortable around you. You set the brush down. You let your hair fall the way it wants to. Wild, asymmetrical, real. You crawl under the covers, the cool linen, embracing you like memory. And in the dark, without an audience, without expectation, you ask yourself something different. What do I find beautiful, not what you've been told to admire? Not the features praised in courtly songs or the ideals painted in holy shrines, but what you notice. The crooked grin of someone who speaks their mind. The hands that carry weight without complaint. The eyes that see and do not judge. The voice that sings even when no one's listening. The woman who wears no ribbon, no rouge, and still walks with certainty. These things, you realize, have nothing to do with symmetry or smoothness or spectacle. They have everything to do with presence, with truth, with wholeness. You exhale into the darkness and feel your chest rise gently. There it is again, that quiet beauty you've carried all along, the one no mirror can capture, the one no stranger can name, the one that belongs entirely to you. No role, no script, no needing to be enough, just being, just you. And for the first time in a very long time, that feels like more than enough. It feels sacred. It feels like home. So now, as your breath slows and your thoughts begin to settle, let yourself imagine that none of the rules ever mattered. Not the veil, not the mirror, not the gaze of others. Let them fall away like threads loosened from an old garment. You are not a canvas waiting to be judged. You are not a statue to be admired or corrected. You are not a story someone else gets to write. You are softness and steel, quiet and power. You are skin that has weathered wind and hands that have made things grow. You are laughter that didn't need permission, tears that didn't ask for silence. You are more than the sum of glances collected across a lifetime. You are the rhythm of footsteps on old stone paths, the glow of candlelight in a quiet room, the pulse of a heart that kept going even when no one noticed. And now there's nothing left to prove. No more roles to play, no more angles to catch, no more silence to hold. Just this breath, and the next, and the next. So close your eyes. Feel the warmth of your own body beneath the blanket. Listen to the quiet around you, the way it wraps itself like a lullaby. There is nothing more you need to be tonight. You've walked through a world that asked everything of you, and you've arrived here whole. Still you. Still beautiful, still enough.